are we playing the 6 again rule, or are you giving penalties? All of these things and that's perfectly acceptable for them to come and speak to him, question things, but when it becomes shouting and screaming and questioning whether he knows the rules, and things like that, I wasn't sure how he was going to react. I mean, personally, I'd have burst into tears and run off the pitch. But he stood his ground, and let's be honest, as anyone who knows Joshua knows, he's not the biggest lad out there. He's smaller than most under 11s that he referees for. And then to have, a group of adults with in the coaches, questioning in a very offensive manner every decision he's making, it leaves him shaken. And then, once the coaches start on referees, then the parents do as well, which is something I've really noticed, both when he's playing or refereeing, that the coaches set the tone for the parents' behaviour, largely.
Yeah, and if the players are then seeing the people they respect, the parents and their coaches, with that behaviour, then they're going to pick up on it too, aren't they?
Yeah, and some of the comments from the players at the end of the match were not nice at all. But as he said, that's the players, that's a different matter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm being very cautious what I'm saying, because obviously I don't want to get, say too much. But, yeah, things have been unpleasant.
Yeah, but overall still positive. So hopefully, Joshua will learn from how he's managed those situations, and it sounds like he's done really well. So
yeah, and when we spoke to the development guy locally, he said it sounds like he dealt with it very well. So that's encouraging to know that actually, yes, his default was the right way to deal with it.
Yeah, good stuff. Right, let's move on to something a little bit lighter, shall we? But well done, Joshua, for his continued development. But Paul Mack, at PaulMack_78, got in touch about last week's episode. He said, I've listened to every episode since 2014. Last week's was by far the toughest to get through as a Huddersfield fan. I can't remember a game review going on longer than the actual game. That aside, keep up the good work. We have had other finals where the review of the match has lasted 80 minutes or so. In the past, because obviously you remember you roll in the fan of the team who's won, and normally we have a good half an hour, 40 minutes or so with that person, and then another half an hour, 40 minutes or so of the other fan reviews and the other talking points. So yeah, I think last week's went on close to maybe an hour and a half. So yeah, we did.
I think there's two factors, isn't there? Like, there's the fact that obviously you as a host is a Wigan fan, and when talking to another Wigan fan, you're bouncing off each other, and you intersperse that with the reviews. And also, it's not just a game review, is it? It's a day review.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah. Hopefully, though, when Huddersfield are able to win something under Ian Watson, we can get Mark on who'll be at the game and watching it there, and we can get someone like Paul, who obviously won't be at the game given that he lives in Australia, on to kind of cover it from the couch perspective as well, and get all the Huddersfield views. So I promise you, Paul, that when you're in the promised land, we will deliver on that. Matt Speakman got in touch about Cade Cust. I had nowhere else to put it in the show, so I thought I'd go up front. Sarah, do you want to tell us what Matt had to say?
Yeah, he said, just quickly on Cust, he's held to very high standards because he's an NRL import, but it's worth remembering he's 23. Had he been an academy player, he'd have played with all our young lads. Harry Smith is a year younger and has played more games at halfback. For Cust to come here almost as an apprentice and have to run a team as a senior halfback is a big ask, but so far he's doing a great job.
Yeah, I think that is a fair point. I think players who come over from Australia are held to a higher standard, but Kate Cuss will be judged a little bit as well against the player that is replaced, which is Jackson Hastings, who obviously played to a really high standard in his career in the UK. But he is only 18 months or so older than Harry Smith. So yeah, I think what we should say is possibly more how great a job Harry Smith's been doing in the last month or so, in games where Cust hasn't played, or the occasion maybe has got to Cust as well because he's only young and developing. Yeah, I think it's good. We don't get many young players, do we, like that over from Australia who are still kind of at the point of not learning their craft but like mastering it.
Yeah.
Normally you look at, like, you've got Reynolds, who's 30 or something. There's Pearce at Catalans, he's back end of his career. Hopewati at Saints, he's not a young player, he's not an old player, but he's not a young player. These sort of skill position players aren't always young, but we have seen some successful ones who've come over earlier in the careers. Matt Parcell is a great example, I think, of that, when he came to Leeds first, and then he's still going strong at Hull KR. But yeah, do you think we expect too much of the Aussies?
Yeah, I mean, I actually didn't realise he was as young as he is.
No, he looks a bit older, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, and, I think it's no secret that I really rate him as a player. But yeah, I think you're right. We do expect too much of the young Australians. I mean, at Hull we had Jacob Miller.
Of course.
When he was only about 21 or something.
Yeah, very young, yeah. Really
young. And I think because he was an Aussie, we wanted the world and we didn't get it. And then obviously he left and has gone on to Wakefield and done great things.
Yeah, he's not a super consistent performer, maybe, but is a Super League halfback that probably, if he'd have stayed with you guys, would have been a solid player for you over the last 8 years, rather than and a sort of permanent partner to Snide over a lot of that time as well. But yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk more about Jacob Miller, won't we, in the match reviews?
Yes.
Fair enough. Well,
yeah, it was 2013, I think, when we signed him.
Yeah, he'd had a breakthrough year, and then when he was a really good junior at West, hadn't he? And then he had a kind of a half a season where he had a bit of a step back, and almost like West were expecting him to be great as well straight away, and they didn't give him time, and then Hull didn't give him time. So you got to credit him as an individual for rebuilding his career to become such a long-standing Super League player. But there was Blake Green, I guess, came over quite young, and then got to go back to the NRL, playing some champion teams down under. So I suppose it's a good point to make about Cuss, and it does make you think about some of these other players as well that we've seen over the years. Right, thanks for everyone getting in touch there. If you want to get in touch and get involved with the show on social media, it's at Super League Pod on Twitter and Instagram, or facebook.com/Super League Pod. You can email superleaguepod@gmail.com like David did this week, or visit superleaguepod.com to get the info on each episode and links to the Google Forms where you can give us your fan views that we'll share and discuss on the shows. And don't forget to subscribe in whatever podcast app you're listening to us on, and leave a rating and review if you can. That would be appreciated. Right. Good bit of feedback there. Good to go through some talking points. And now we're going to move on to the new talking points of this week, which will come from the Super League Round 14 match reviews. Okay, Sarah, Round 14 started on Friday night. Extra bank holiday, but none of the Super League teams wanted to upset the Championship's double weekend, did they? So it started on Friday night, first up down in the south of France, and the first game that I got wrong on my guesses was Catalans versus Huddersfield. It was 18-2 to the Giants at half-time, so they dominated that first half. Catalans looked to mount a comeback, but it wasn't enough. Huddersfield won 22-14, 7,240 were there. Chris Kendall was the referee. Huddersfield were just a bit better across the numbers, actually. 155 more metres at a slightly better average gain, with one extra break, one fewer penalty conceded, and a 3% better team tackle success rate. What about the individuals?
So individually for Huddersfield, Michael Lawrence made 135 metres, Jerry McGilvery with 8 tackle busts and 121 metres, Jake Wardle with 106 metres, and Chris McQueen with 2 tries and 100 metres. For the losing Catalans, it was Matt Whitley with 46 tackles, 10 of which were marker tackles, Tom Davies with 121 metres, Mike McMeekin with 107 metres, and Sam Cassiano with 107 metres as well.
Good stuff. Do you want to do the first fan view? Because I've got a late one in that you don't have in front of you as well.
Yep, so Alan Walker got in touch and said 2 weeks to get ready, they lose the final. Should never lose, even though Watson's top coach, not if you want to be a top team, and playing on Friday when we're paying to be on telly and it's only shown in France. Not going to sell many pools on top of that. The whole idea of paying for telly is to get the sponsors' money some payback. Madness. Fucking madness. Karma's going to get you. At least it's sunny.
And Mark W said, absolutely huge win for us. To go to Perpignan and beat an informed Catalan side less than a week after Cup heartbreak really shows the resolve and attitude of the team. Get McQueen a contract ASAP. Yeah,
I also didn't predict Huddersfield to win.
No, and you've got to credit them, I think, with no Farge, no Hill, and no Yates as well. Hill injured, Yates suspended. I think this is a statement win for Huddersfield, really. Reading the match reviews, it sounds like Will Price made up for some lost time with his performance in this game. Catalans clearly made it interesting in the second half, but they couldn't capitalise on what they did in the first half of the second half. And I mean, they're missing Drinkwater, aren't they? They had no Bousquet for this one, he was banned as well. So I suppose it does even up the misses from each side a bit, I guess. But really good win for Huddersfield.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have been hurting, aren't they? And then they've got to travel to France. And the highlights I saw, they just looked better.
Well, the first highlight of the highlights was the Latelli try, wasn't it? And he's nailed on for an SLP Dream Team position this year. I think he's one centre and who's the other. It has to be that way, surely, because it just looks like a man amongst boys or a giant amongst men or what have you. He just has so much power and is so impressive. And I just think the combination of him and McQueen,
because they often play down the same side, don't they? I just think that they just look so good. They play so well together.
Yeah, I think they've balanced it out recently, haven't they? And Latelli's back on the left side.
Right.
And making that his mainstay position. McQueen scored a try. His second try was a carbon copy of his cup final try. So I don't know if Catalans didn't do the video work or Huddersfield are just brilliant at executing that play and pulled it off again. So McQueen's going well. One thing
maybe they
that
could get the cup final in France.
Maybe they didn't get it. Yeah. One thing that Catalans won't enjoy from the video review of this game was the Adam O'Brien try. I mean, it's not often you see a top side switch off like that. Well done to AOB for taking advantage. But from 25 metres out, a dummy half run shouldn't be getting in behind the ruck and all the way through to the try line as easily as he did there. So. Yeah. I suppose similarly Huddersfield won't be too pleased watching back how Arthur Moore jinked his way through his try totally untouched. I think he ran past about 6 Giants players in total with his step in various directions, but none of them got anywhere near him. It was I don't know, something like a ballerina dancing amongst the woods or something. It looked like.
Yeah.
But yeah. News story off the back of this: Fuad Yaha has signed a new 2-year deal with Catalans. So Catalans have tied down Yaha. They're bringing in Tom Johnston, and they've already got Tom Davies. So that's 3 really strong frontline wingers that they've got there in that squad for next year.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they all fit together.
Let's move on, shall we, to a game that was on TV on Friday night. Warrington hosting the Leeds Rhinos. It was 20 points to 4 to Leeds at half time, so they had a strong first half. They had a very strong second half.